Govanin. Welcome back to Medieval Art. I'm Dr. Bryan Keene, and I'm joined again with Dave Lewis of Cinemillennials on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. We are thrilled to be discussing the finale of Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, Season 2, Shadow and Flame. Dave, we have truly fought against the darkness with light this season. We've lost several important characters that have made up the great legendarium of this series. So, where would we like to start with the good, the sort of not so great, and the hopes for the future?
Overall, I really enjoyed the atmosphere of the episode, but I did feel that it was rushed. We're getting the brilliant, what I think should have been a longer, more breathed in goodbye to Lord Celebrimbor. As you can see, I'm sporting my colors here with my robe. I felt that this show was really building up so much of this relationship to only kind of fall flat in a little bit of a ways. I know, Brian, you love the connections that Tolkien has within the medieval connections that Tolkien has with Saint Sebastian in this way. And I was wishing more of that kind of visual representation within that story, as well as a lot of people like ourselves were hoping to see Celebrimbanner in many ways. If you don't know what Celebrimbanner is, the armies of Sauron use his body as a banner in their war against the elves. Maybe we will see this in the future. Who knows? I'm glad that we're getting more fleshing out of Galadriel's role in this season. I felt like although she was the protagonist in the first season, and as the second season came, she kind of faded off into the background to fit other things, to have more of a highlight on other stories. And then I also felt, we're finally getting to the drama of the story within Numenor, but we are missing a lot of the major motives of the immortality issues and the faith issues here as to why they're truly divided, not because of a Palantir or any kind of connection to Sauron, but because of their inner motivations for them desiring immortality like the elves. I think Khazad-dûm, the show does its best work and its full work within there. There's so much humanity in there. There's so much dwarvishness in there, and they were able to combine both of those together really, really strongly in this episode. And of course, we have the reveal. Now we can say it. The stranger is Gandalf. So there are so many different elements that we can talk about in this episode. Brian, what were the things that you were looking forward to most to talk about?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the finale to me really reveals the challenge in a show like this because we spent time in the finale in every single realm and nearly every character that we've gotten to know, right? We had time in Numenor, we were in Pelargir, we were in Eregion, and we had this brilliant reveal of the Valley of Imladris, which will eventually be the site of Rivendell and Elrond's great seat. So those were really exciting moments. And then, of course, we were also in Rhûn, and we had the reveal that you've mentioned. We were in Khazad-dûm. So it suggests a challenge in moving over this vast map of a world that we've gotten to know gradually over the two seasons with the Rings of Power, and then all of this of us that know the Jackson films, and then those of us that also are in love with the Tolkien original. There's so much there, and I agree with you. You used the phrase breathing, and I wish that we had, and I hope that we'll continue to be able to breathe a little more in Numenor. I want to spend time like we had with Galadriel and Elendil and Halbrand walking the streets of Numenor and really getting to see and feel the locations. I don't quite know where the Shrine of the Faithful is, except for the quick glimpse that we got. And I don't know that relationship to the pubs that we've seen, to the guilds that we've seen. I don't clearly have a sense of the landscape. Whereas in Khazad-dûm, I know we're under the mountain, but at least there I have a better sense of the vastness of these halls. I have a sense of where the marketplaces are. I have a sense of where the throne room is, where the workshops are, where their living spaces are. So there we have really seen a fleshed out world. In Rune, the maps sort of helped us get to this land, but then the maps quickly come and go. And for me, that's also a space that I think we could lean into a little bit more and allow us to feel those worlds coming to life. I really want to feel surrounded in the way that when I see Gandalf, Legolas, and Aragorn and Gimli riding up to Edoras, in the Two Towers, I really felt that we're there and we were there in enough time and we weren't going back and forth as much. I think if the Lord of the Rings films had been constantly returning to the Shire or constantly returning to Osgiliath, it would have felt like such a disjointed series in a way that we covered so much terrain. So I would like us in season 3, hopefully, to have that pacing resolved. It feels like they've done a better job, right? Season 1, we were kind of jittery. Season 2, we've streamlined some elements and really focused. The music is exceptional all around, with the exception maybe of that rock anthem that still took me a little bit out of the film, but I understood it and I'm happy to sit with it for a moment. So there's a lot. I think that's the excitement for me about a series like this, that we can agree, we can disagree, we can have fun debating and diving into and delving into the lore. And ultimately, I'm always happy to be in Middle Earth. I hope moving forward, there's a constant refining of the process, just as we see with the refining of the rings. And I hope that by season 3, we really get the perfection of the three, even if they're forged out of order. So maybe, bounce it back to you in terms of what you're most excited for as we look forward, and then reflecting back on what is really the heart of this season and or this series in relation to Tolkien's heart.
The things that I'm looking forward to the most is what's going to be happening in Numenor, especially with Anúminas. Now that we see Elendil is going out to his homeland in a way, the place of his ancestry, the place of the which is really the heart of the faithful during this show time period that we have here.
And he'll
That's what
connect with
I'm
Anarion, right?
and
I mean,
how
this
yes,
we've had the name
exactly,
dropped, so this is great.
and how we're going to connect with an audion and how the faithful are really flourishing there. I want to see that kind of, I think one of the good things about the show is that it's able to flesh out a lot of things. Like we saw the fleshing out of the relationship between Anatar and Celebrimbor. That is the strongest part of the show within this season, that we're getting some things fleshed out in a lot of appropriate ways. The other things that I'm looking forward to is this kind of, there was a announcement that one of the Crown, the show from the Crown, one of the writers from that show was hired to write on season 3. That we're gonna have this, and I think we're gonna have with Khazad-dûm, we're gonna have more of a focus on this kind of Cold War in a way of this rise to succession between Durin and his brother and Disa and everything that's going on there. I really like where we're going with that, and of course, I really love that we are now within Rivendell. We are in the Valley of Imladris. I love that. Imladris is one of my favorite places. Council of Elrond is one of my favorite all-time chapters. So I'm excited to see where that goes and how those characters that are there now develop further. And in terms of what the show stays true to the Tolkien's Legendarium, and the strongest thing I think the show does is that it's adhering to its themes, to Tolkien's themes really well. Especially in this episode, that's the strongest part about this episode for me, is its adherence to themes of pity and of forgiveness. People talk about this whole idea about Tolkien being morally, how he has his characters so morally good, perfectly morally good, his heroes perfectly morally good versus his villains morally evil, just purely morally evil. But that's not always the case. We had this character who, again, R.I.P. Adar, who was a really good addition in the idea of theme. I think that's really great that we have this idea of pity and forgiveness across both villains and heroes, because that is true to our humanity, because both pity can be used as a shield and as a sword as we end up within this last episode.
I agree, and I think it's really exciting that we still have at least the 3 more seasons to sort of work within. So much more to consider. I'm glad that we've had lots of these little references. We said Anarion a moment ago, but also Gondolin, and so it was really appropriate that Gondolin is name dropped, but then we're also in Imladris, so 2 hidden valleys, and there are some really smart moments like that. So there's so much more to say. Let's pick this conversation up in a little bit of a longer segment. And Dave, thank you as always, and until our next season, Namarie.
Namarie.